you're not yet at Hasing. I'm sure you'll be there before the election comes
Definitely.
subsequently. So you're holding the fort.
Sure.
Thank you for joining us this morning. For those joining us on our streams, Money, Imelda, Nasser, William Beche, Aaron, all of you joining us, we're very much appreciative that you always join us on our stream. TV3 Ghana is always available for you. Join us for the big issues. Let us have some great interactions as well. Let us know what you think about many of those comments that you have. So I have Alfred Odu, Solly Evans, not Solly, that Evans Blay, Juliana Belinda Ubri. Thank you for joining us, Juliana. We're grateful. Adams, Rashid Dangobe, and then also, of course, Money. Mukhtar Eliasu, good morning to you. It's great to have you as well. Bernard Kubati, thank you. And then let us know what you think. Saeed Buntase, please send us more on welfare. Good morning to all of you. Now, the president, over the last, 2 or 3 days, had been raising concerns because apparently he's been very much worried how rating agencies have been downgrading the government that he supervises and then also the country. And so has some stinging words for them, and it's something that many have raised issues about, but also criticized at the same time. He was making this comment at the tail end or wrap up of the Afri-Exim event that took place right here in Accra. Listen to him.
Which recently had to deal with one of the most difficult periods in its post-independent history. Difficulties which were exacerbated by the reckless behavior of rating agencies that engaged in pro-cyclical downgrades, shutting Ghana out of capital markets.
So the president invariably is worried that these rating agencies have been downgrading Ghana, giving Ghana negative publicity, creating some blight on our credibility, our creditworthiness, etc. And this is what they've been doing by way of the ratings they've been giving his government over the last couple of years. So we have Moody's, and then we have Standard & Poor's and a couple of them, and Fitch as well. But readily we have Moody's and Fitch. Let's put the first one on the screen, and we'll explain to viewers and all of us really why we need to have this conversation. Why is the president at this point in time saying the rating agencies are bad or have been doing us whilst at the same time the current ones are the ones that are used by the multilateral partners to make their decisions as to whether we need to take something. All right. So again, what Moody's did say was giving us a CA rating. Now, it reflects expectation that private creditors will likely incur substantial losses in the restructuring of both local and foreign currency debt planned by the government as part of its 2023 budget. So that's what they gave us by November 2022. Now, let's go to Fitch, I believe. And Fitch, they tend to do it subsequently. So, in November 29, or in November, Moody's rated as CA, and the outlook means stable. Moody's then in September had rated as CAA2, means that's under review. And then Fitch rated as CC in September. And then also another CC was maintained in August. Now you go throughout that period subsequently into this year. Standard & Poor's rated as CCC plus, negative. That's for the outlook. Moody's then gave us CAA1, said the economy by way of the outlook was stable. Then B negative. And we know that the current rating takes us to RD. You know, RD means that you're beyond salvation. And that's why, of course, ultimately it reflects as going to the IMF. Now, let me ask you, Nani Ajantua. The president at the time when he was campaigning as candidate back in 2016 used these credit rating agencies to comment whether the government was performing poorly, abysmally, or otherwise. Why is he now complaining today? And why should that be the case?
Well, good morning.
Good morning to your viewers. Good morning to my CPP comrades. Good morning to my dear sister Aisha. Good morning to my friend Abdul Latif Dan, the MP for Ablekuma Central.
Abdul Latif
Dan.
Dan,
Yes.
MP for Ablekuma Central.
Yes. Well, I'm lost for words. I don't know how to answer that question. Certainly, you think you'll be happy if he's the one. Would you be happy if you are being rated like that? He used it against somebody, and now it is his time. So certainly he will not be happy, but the way you feel does not really matter when it comes to the economy. It's how you manage the economy that matters. And that is why it is an outlook. Somebody out there is looking at what you have done. You cannot grade yourself. That's why we have examiners. That's why when you do an exam, there are people who would decide whether you passed or you didn't pass. And you are graded based upon your performance. So I don't see why and how the president would say that these institutions are reckless. That is a very strong word. Because if you are not in trouble, you don't go for a lifeline. If you are not in trouble, you are not put on a support system. If your health is okay, you are not put on a support system. And Ghana right now, we are on a support system. And everybody knows the events leading to this, that even because of the way our economy was going, it was even very difficult for even the IMF to take a decision. I do not think that these rating agencies would have anything to do with the IMF dilly-dallying or being a bit reluctant to even give us the money. They are around. They know what is going on. What would be their interest for them to downgrade us? I mean, what would be their interest? And he himself, in his submission, said that at a point they have graded us high before, and that was good. And it's a bit worrying for me, who is a CPP person, a socialist inclined, for the president to say, a socialist, for the president to say that these ratings have not allowed us to borrow on the capital markets.
Why not?
Yeah, because should we always borrow? If that is the reason, the foundation upon which he is worried, then it is good. He should find other ways for us to generate money internally. Well, I will not stop saying it. I will not stop saying it today or tomorrow. If $6 billion worth of illicit gold leaves our shores every year, $6 billion, and we need $3 billion from IMF, then it means that we should be able to generate internal resources to run our economy. It is the same borrowing that has brought us here. Borrowing on the international market, on the capital market, with high interest rates. And it is because of that we have encumbered most of our statutory funds. That is why those statutory funds cannot be used for anything. For instance, ESLA. ESLA is supposed to be used to pay off the debt of the utilities. Some of the debts are still standing, IPPs are still crying. And when you talk about it, this government will tell you that, certain PPAs were signed. And that is why they had to pay and all that. So borrowing on the capital market is not a pleasant thing for this nation. For how long are we going to be encumbered and drained and drowned in loans at interest rates that are not very okay? Can't we do things internally? Can't we be prudent with our resources? Prudent enough to be able to manage what we have. Because I believe that, Roland, how many are we in this nation? I believe that with all the resources that we have as a country, if we are prudent with ours, if we have a plan towards using the money that we have, towards using the financial resources and the financial muscle and wherewithal that we have, we will be able to save. Judiciously. For instance, and everything that we do is as if we don't get an outside the private sector person, the government cannot move. Look at toll. Giving away toll. Every day their governments are giving away something. Assets, national assets are being given away without us making an effort. So if the president is upset because he can't borrow on the capital market, I thought he was going to talk about the image of the country. I thought he was going to say that it is destroying our image and we need to do something about it. But if you are worried because you cannot borrow, that action alone is worrisome. Because now you have a penchant to borrow. Your government has a penchant to borrow. Every time you have to borrow. Every time you have to borrow. When will we end the borrowing spree? We have borrowed so much that when we put everything together, it is huge. The sort of finances that has come, money that has come into the hands of this government. Meanwhile, we don't have anything to show physically to say that is commensurate to the borrowing. That is where the problem, the government will tell you, oh, we have done this, we have done that. Fine, you have. Is it commensurate to the money that you have borrowed? Then they will tell you that, oh, we put it in free SHS. Free SHS is good. But the kind of products that are coming out of free SHS is not good. It should be well targeted. So that it's not as if everybody is there. Those who can pay should be made to pay. Those who cannot pay, it should be targeted enough. Because now what is going on, the young ones go to school, 1 month they are home. I'm not saying, just saying, because I have friends I have a family. They go to school 1 month they are home, so now their parents would have to find teachers, extra classes. Then it makes it more expensive. So all the money that they have borrowed, you see, this desire to always borrow on the capital market, because even after the government went for IMF, with all its conditionalities, with all the issues surrounding IMF that you cannot do this, you cannot do that, they were still talking about going to the capital market to borrow.
Just a couple of weeks ago.
Yes, what is the interest? That is it because at the end of the day, Data Bank will do the book running and they will get their percentage of then get $154 million or what and more. Why the interest in? Because you posit it against what he said. The next thing he said was that it has blocked us from going to the capital market to borrow. If it has blocked you, it's good.
It is?
Yes, because if you have been blocked from going to take money.
When we are debt-ridden and we need space.
If you are debt-ridden, why are you debt-ridden? You need to sit down, put stakeholders together and find out why you are debt-ridden. You don't just get up and be debt-ridden. Because if you have a certain kind of income and you spend above your income, you'll be debt-ridden. If you are not making sure that you get more money for yourself, for the country, if you are not sure, you are not harnessing your resources prudently and judiciously, you'll be debt-ridden. Why are we debt-ridden? Kwame Nkrumah's time to 2017, the debt was 121 billion Ghana cedis. Today, we are inching towards $1 trillion. After how many years? 2016, I used my hands. When I was young, I used to use my fingers to count. 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, 7 years. The debt overhang on this nation is so much you cannot even quantify it.
Is it that the president is oblivious of perhaps the state of the country or the economy and doesn't think that what the rating agencies are giving up by way of the ratings are justifiable?
Maybe, I cannot say, but sometimes the people around the presidents, I won't say only one president, they don't tell them the truth. And I think it is becoming increasingly common that it's possible His Excellency Akufo-Addo maybe sometimes doesn't read over his address before he comes out to read it. Because the address sometimes is written by some script writers, he doesn't write it. Because for me, for the president to use a word like reckless, it means that people don't know what they are doing. They don't know what they are doing. They just do anything anyhow. How can you say that international rating agencies who have existed even before this time, existed even during the time of Kwame Nkrumah, how can you say that they will be reckless? Of course, they shouldn't determine how our economy is. But if they are rating us, for instance, if they rated us A+, would he say they are reckless? He wouldn't say that. But now they are rating us, and all of them, how can everybody be wrong?
Standard & Poor's, Fitch, Moody's.
And these are reputable. How can, because you see, the president should start accepting. When you accept that there's something wrong, it gives you the capacity to correct it. It gives you the capacity to think beyond the box, to find out how you would make sure that this is corrected. If I go to school and I don't score high grades, I have to look at myself and did I learn properly? Because there are so many ingredients that go into this. I mean, typically, even the raw parameters, the contingent parameters that exist, what is inflation? It's just recently that is now 42. It used to be 50-something.
54.
54.
Went as far as 54.
Yes, so the 42, and at the time that they were rating us, it was about 54%.
Even at 54, there were people like Professor Hanks who were saying it was even over 100.
Over 100 and all that. But
at the time, back in October.
Let's say that on paper, 54. So if I'm rating you with an inflation level of 54%, how would I rate you? Excellent. And I'm rating you with an exchange rate of 15 cedis to the dollar. I would say that you are good. High tariffs and all that.
Officially, the exchange rate is 12.
I say at the time they did these things, it was 15 cedis.
It was hovering, yeah.
It is not hovering, it was 15. That is hovering. What's the meaning of hovering? 14.98 is what?
Approximately 15.
Yes, 15. And some people were selling it 15. Yeah. So at the time,
I actually know somebody who bought it at 15.
You said it here that
yes,
somebody bought it at 15.
So I'm a big man.
Yes. So for instance, let me tell you, so if 2017, if you had 150,000 Ghana cedis, it was $43,000. Today, if you have the same amount, you are doing about $11,000. At the time that it was 15, you were doing about 9,500. Look at the difference. In a matter of how many years? 7 years. 7 years. $43,000 has now become 9,000, 11,000, 9,000. If somebody had my business,
and even that, it depends on where you're doing the. If you go to the bank, it will be lower.
Yeah, it will be lower. A friend of mine who is a business person told me that she stopped going out to bring in anything because her capital at the time was $178,000, the money that she had when she was trading. Now it's about $80,000.
Due to the forex differential.
So with this, how do you expect these rating agencies to rate you? Even if children are rating you in Ghana, they would rate you worse than the rating agencies.
Very charitable.
Because because the toffee that they eat, the biscuit that they buy to school, it has increased 100-fold. Look, a container, a tin of needle, which used to be 25 cedis, somewhere in 2022, is now 102.
Please say that again.
A tin
I haven't bought needle. The one they give the children.
Yes, the needle milk for children, which used to be about 20. It was 25 from the beginning of 2022. Then it came to 55 cedis. Now it's 102 cedis.
Just last year.
Yes. So how else will you be rated? So let's put Moody aside, and the president should go to the market for the market women to rate his government. They will be more reckless than Moody. If he says that rating him, that action is reckless, is a reckless move for the people to rate his government in that manner, then he should start getting some people within, market women, independent people, to rate him. To rate the government, and let's see. Because you see, you rate government based on parameters and economic conditions. You don't rate government in a vacuum.
Let me write it down. You said parameters, eh?
Yes, parameters. You rate government
And economic conditions.
economic conditions. The parameters, economic parameters, contingent factors available. That is the basis upon which you rate government. Prices of goods and services. How do I exist? Cost of living levels. Standard of living levels have dwindled. Do you get me? Accommodation, food, medical, and all that. So you have to know how are these parameters. You see, the president should not rate the this economy by the way he lives. The people in government should not rate it by the way they live. Because maybe their life is good, their life is okay, so they don't know what is going on behind the fence. They should move behind the fence to see what is there. And that would allow them to appreciate what the rating agencies are doing for the nation, which will allow the president to work harder. Because that is why I always say that this government, when I say it, they say that I am insulting them, I am denigrating. But they have this peacockal spirit.
They have what?
Peacockal spirit.
Peacockal?
Yes.
The government has a peacockal spirit.
Yes, because they do not, they just bury their head in the sand and flaunt their beautiful feathers. Yes. They become like ostriches.
Peacockal.
Yes. Their head is high up there. Not looking
peacock.
down. Peacock, yes.
Okay, peacockal.
Yes, not looking at what is happening. Because it only takes somebody who is very blind to the environment to say that what they are doing is reckless. They are doing it based on contingent factors. And the contingent factors don't look good. So what we have to do is to make sure that we work hard to make the contingent factors look good.
Is the president, quote unquote, living in a so-called fool's paradise? Or perhaps maybe tickling himself and laughing and thinking that we're in a good state, whilst it is rather the rating agencies who want to paint Ghana black?
What would be their interest?
This very president that we have, I will call very cunning. He's very cunning.
The president is cunning?
Very cunning.
Why?
You know why?
He's an astute politician.
Roland, you are not labeled astute just by looking at you. Your deeds tell whether you are astute or not. So, I'm here to tell you his deeds and why I call him cunning. This is a president who ran to the market because his predecessor was being downgraded to a B negative. Even when we had a positive outlook then, he ran to the market. He called him all sorts of names, including incompetence, and promised to do better with the help of his running mate then.
What do you mean by running?
The then running mate.
The vice president?
Yes.
He wants to be president of Ghana.
That's what we hear. He ran to the market, made all sort of noise. He made Ghanaians to believe that, look, the rating agencies have rated him B negative. It's because he's incompetent. It's because he's so poor. He's not doing. You wrote at the back of rating agencies' results to criticize your predecessor. And today, you don't want the same rod to be measured for you. You don't want it because yours is so abysmal that nobody wants to even hear about it. The president is so cunning. Since when? Since when did he realize that rating agencies have been reckless? Since when did he realize that the rating agencies are not doing us any good? Is it because today he's Akufo-Addo and he's the president of Ghana? So everything must go his way. You see, this is a man who has been made by the system, including some of you journalists. You made Akufo-Addo because you hyped him so much.
Who?
The journalists in Ghana, some of you hyped Akufo-Addo so much. You branded him as the one to salvage Ghana's situation. You made us believe he was the Messiah. With his vice president, Ghana was going to become paradise within a space of 18 years when he assumes power. You trumpeted this thing and made Ghanaians fall in love with him. And today, we have him crying and complaining all over, blaming everybody for the economic woes we are facing except himself. He's blaming everybody. You see, if Akufo-Addo really wants us to believe that he's doing so well, then he should create his own financial institutions.
I don't understand.
Yes, so that they can give him money and rate him. But you can't continue to go to the credit market for money. You come back and you don't want them to rate you as to how you spend the money and how you are managing the economy with the money. They will definitely rate you. Because these are the same rating agencies who were rating John Mahama. How different are you from them? From John Mahama, that you want to be rated with a very positive grade.
Or outlook.
Exactly. You see, he talks about the rating agencies being reckless. Who is more reckless than Akufo-Addo? Who is more reckless? He was so reckless that even in the midst of COVID, he was flying luxurious private jets at $20,000 per hour.
Aisha, you were not in Ghana. The Minister of Defense did come to Parliament to explain that for security reasons, the president had to fly non-commercial.
Roland, they should spare us all those excuses. Look, we had our private jet, presidential jet, sitting there. This same presidential jet that the defense minister came telling us was not up to standard was being given out to the Liberian president, George Weah. Roland, am I lying? It was being given out to him and he was using it. He was just so ostentatious. He wanted to live a luxurious life like an Arabian king at the expense of the Ghanaian taxpayer. He didn't care. Even in the midst of COVID, you've lived your life so recklessly. You've spent our money so recklessly.
But that's an unfair comment.
It's very fair, Roland. It's so fair. You see, this man had the opportunity to borrow recklessly by the same rating agency's recommendation that look, Ghana was doing well. And he took advantage of that rating to borrow recklessly and spent recklessly. You see, when you were going about doing all the borrowing, spending our hard-earned taxes on the cathedral, and we were shouting on top of the roof, you didn't care. You didn't care. You had all the justifications to spend the money the way you wanted. And today you come out after engaging in all this reckless spending, borrowing. You want to blame another person for your woes? That's not possible, Roland. That's not possible. And this is a precedent. Apart from spending the COVID, even the COVID money, the money we got so much from COVID, this man spent it recklessly. They gave it out to their party folks. So if we're talking about recklessness, this is what I mean by recklessness. He is the very person who has been reckless with our economy and not the rating agencies. And Roland, you know what? These rating agencies, I would say, have even been very charitable with Akufo-Addo and his government.
What do you mean? Because the latest of the ratings we have, that's indicating we have default rating, IDR.
They've been so charitable. And if there is anyone who has been so unfair or is being so unfair to the rating agencies, then it's Akufo-Addo. You see, the downgrade of our economy, it happened long before the rating agencies caught up with investor sentiment. It happened long before. IMF and the World Bank has started signaling the collapse of the economy after they had done some work on African countries and rated Ghana as a country that is has a debt unsustainability, like we are not able to sustain our debt. The rating agencies, even at the time, were still rating Akufo-Addo as credit worthy. And Akufo-Addo would take that result, go to the capital market and tell them that this is my rating. I'm worth of borrowing. And they will give Akufo-Addo money. Even at the time that investors had sentiments over the economy because they were listening to the IMF and the World Bank. Rating agencies were rating Akufo-Addo positively. And by that, he was able to go out there and borrow. Today, if they have come to consciousness and realize that, hey, look, something is not being done well, and this is your real rating, you think you can come out and criticize them. Because in Ghana, you have the power to manipulate state institutions. So you think you have the power to manipulate them. You don't have the power to manipulate them. You don't have the power. The only place you have the power to manipulate how they operate is where you are a president. Your power doesn't go beyond Ghana. So if he thinks he can have his way through everything, including manipulating or blackmailing the rating agencies, to give him a good rating.
You think he's giving them pressure, trying to blackmail them? That's not what he's giving a candid view as the executive president of our republic. I mean, that's what he's doing.
That is not a candid view. Candid view, per whose rating? His own rating. That is not a candid view. We can't call that view candid, Roland. We can't call that view candid. So if today you think the rating agencies are not doing anything, in any case, Roland, in any case, was it not the very person who went, I can't remember where exactly, but advised African countries against borrowing? Was he not the very person? What has changed? Why should the person who claimed to have a solid team, who claimed to have all the best economists, have his vice president as being the best economist ever that has ever existed, be crying for not having access to the credit market? Why should he be the one doing the crying now? You go about advising your colleagues, African countries and African presidents to stop borrowing, and that it's not a good thing. Then the next day, you go and sit or stand on a platform and start crying over not having access to the credit market. He's so inconsistent. He's been so inconsistent, and it's high time the president at least take blame for once. You can't continue blaming people for your woes when you can't even look at yourself and say, this is what I'm doing wrong, and have to rectify to be able to get this economy moving. And until Akufo-Addo sits on his butt, call his team, call all other stakeholders who matter as far as this economy is concerned, so that they can fix this economy, he will continue ranting till thy kingdom come. And trust me, this ranting will continue until 2024. That His Excellency John Dramani Mahama will come and take over the mantle from him and teach him how to govern a country. Thank you, Roland.